Hey everyone, Vibeform here, and welcome to my first ever music review on this channel. That's right folks, in my first video on this channel, I told you all that I was gonna do music reviews occasionally. And now, as I promised, the wait is finally over. I just hope I don't screw up. Anyways, for my first ever music review, we're gonna be taking a look at Porter Robinson's third and most recent album, Smile. So if you have been living under a rock, Porter Robinson is an American DJ and an electronic music producer known for making music that significantly changed the entire aspect of EDM music. And I gotta say this, ever since I listened to his music recently, I became a huge fan of him. In fact, he is currently one of my favorite music artists of all time. Because after he released his debut EP Spitfire back in 2012, which didn't really age well, he went on to make many unique and phenomenal music by releasing his debut album, Worlds, back in 2014, which is an amazing album thanks to its synth-like elements and atmosphere. Happy 10-year anniversary to that album, by the way. And also releasing another album in 2021 titled Nurture, which is by far one of the best electronic albums I've ever heard, period. Words cannot describe how much work he puts on this phenomenal album, and I would definitely recommend everyone to listen to it. So when I first heard that he was going to release his third album, I was so excited, especially after I listened to his singles for it. This album was released back in July 26th of this year, and it is known to have an early 2000s and hyperpop aesthetic, and to use the styled elements that were used for Porter's previous projects. It was made based on his emotions after the fact that he felt stressed while writing Nurture and that he wanted an album that is, quote, no sincerely, all fun, and an album that reviews an absurdity for a world that rejects context, according to Porter himself. But really the question is the album worth it? Well, unsurprisingly, yeah. Although this album only has 10 tracks and is not as good as Nurture and possibly Worlds, I think this is a great album in my opinion, and I'm going to explain why right now by dividing into my opinions on each and every track on this album, and then I'm going to give out my final thoughts and rating for this album as a whole. So without further ado, let's get started with my first ever music review on Porter Robinson's third album, Smile. So the first track we have on this album is called Knock Yourself Out, with an emoticon apparently. This is one of the 4 singles released for this album, being the second after Cheerleader, which we're gonna get to that in the next section. According to Genius, this track explains about Porter's self-image and the perception of his fans, showing how it is difficult to see how much he puts into his music. And to be honest, this has probably been one of my top 3 on this album. It's not too intense, it's not too relaxed, but it's in between them. This song really has that fun and catchy feel to it, and it's very enjoyable, which is what makes this song notable. I also enjoy these 8-bit melodies throughout the entire track, and the countdown before the closing verse is a really good touch. On top of that, the production of this track is very well made, especially the ending of it where things really hyped up. Oh, and another thing, I do enjoy the lyrics of it, despite them being pretty random for some sort. But yeah, awesome start to this album, so what's next? Oh yes, the peak of this album. Our next track on this album is called Cheerleader. It is the first ever single that was released for this album. But basically, Porter tries to explore social relationships both with his fans and other musicians out there. And wow, I don't know what to start on this track. This track is so energetic, it's basically like a chaotic roller coaster. I really love the chorus and also the electronic rock elements, especially that keyboard instrument that played from the start. I do enjoy that the most. And the samplings are really cool and added a special touch to the track. The production, though it isn't perfect, is still a very top notch with all the effort put around this track. And man, the ending was very intense in a great way after the bridge part where Porter plays the guitar. That was probably the best section of this track. But yeah, this is definitely my favorite track on this album by far, since it's again an intense but energetic track with very enjoyable elements, and I definitely recommend this track. And now we have Russian Roulette, the third single released for this album. Very interesting. This one is a very interesting one, as it's my second favorite track on this album. I love the melodies between the lyrics, I think it's very fitting to the track, I enjoyed the chorus parts of it, and I also love the songwriting of this as well as the lyrics. But can we talk about the end of the track for a moment, where the execution of it is so good? Like, I love how it starts where it's just Porter singing with some sort of an effect, but then everything builds up, which leads to some very epic and hyped up beats of energy. I don't know, it really feels amazing to me with the whole build up thing. And apparently this track is about Porter digging in some depression and suicidal thoughts. Oh, so that's why the ending is like that. Ending on sound at the start, and the title of the track, and basically the entire lyric. Oh, and can you believe the effort that Porter made in that music video? Like, he used so many sources and websites for the lyrics, it's really incredible. Extra points for the track. Oh look, we have a track that isn't a single. This track is called Perfect Pinterest Garden, which I do like the title of it for some reason. And yeah, this might probably be my least favorite track on this album. I don't really know, but despite that, this is still a great song, as the vocal chops are really good in general, as well as how catchy the song is. I mean, it basically sure is a bop, especially with the beat of it. And on top of that, I really like the guitar playing in this track, as it sounds great. And I really enjoyed the second half of it, since you got the backing vocals of it, with just everything added to it. But yeah, not much to say about it, but overall, very catchy song, and I really enjoyed it. Next. You have the cup? No, it's 2024, we don't need a year about cups, okay? I'm joking, but in all seriousness, this track used samples from an interview with Lil Wayne, and how it reflects how our flaws makes us who we are, which I didn't know about. And to be honest, I feel like these samples are kinda odd, but hey, I think it still fits. Also, I really like the guitar pieces and also that piano melody throughout the track. Not to mention that the production of it is really good and smoothing, as well as the vocals of it, and you can probably tell the emotions around this track. I don't really have nothing much to say next, but I think this track deserved well, so moving on. And now we have Kitsune Maison Freestyle, which is known to be the fourth and final single before the album releases. And surprisingly, this single was released on July 19th, which is exactly my birthday, which is pretty cool. And personally, I think the entire track as a whole feels very catchy. Probably the catchiest of the album besides Knock Yourself Out. And on top of that, the vocals are actually great, especially when we get to the chorus parts of the track. The 8-bit melodies are a very good touch, by the way. Now, the reason why the title of the track is called Kitsune Maison Freestyle is because this track was promoted by Porter himself, giving away free clothing as a pop-up store. What a way to promote the single, am I right? But yeah, overall, this track is indeed catchy, and that's why it's very enjoyable. And now things are starting to get pretty emotional, because the next track on this album is called Easier to Love You. And this track is pretty much meant to be a love song to Porter's younger self, as well as himself in the present times. And man, the emotions of it really represent itself. Like, I really love the guitar arrangements and that atmospheric glow in the background of the track. Best of all, the vocals are legitimately heartfelt, and I really love how it includes those effects that are applied to nurture for Porter's younger self. I also enjoyed how they're able to mix the vocals and also those 8-bit sounds in the end. A very good touch. But yeah, Easier to Love You, it's indeed an emotional track for its guitar and vocals. And then we have the track that is named after one of the most famous paintings in history, Mona Lisa. This track is the only track in the album that includes a collaboration with another music artist. And that music artist is Angel Frost, who is a singer that is part of the pop music duo Frost Children, which, to be honest, I've never listened to their songs before. But when I first heard Angel Frost's vocals in the track, I think it's really impressive, especially along with Porter's, and I think their combination really fits well. As for the rest of the track, the production of it was very stunning, and I do like the beat loops in the track. I think the best part about this track is actually in the final part of it, as I really enjoyed it a lot. The effects applied to the vocals before that are a nice touch, and for some reason, this track kinda reminds me of that first track in Porter's first album called Divinity, as it kinda sounds pretty familiar with a more emotional twist. But yeah, this is a great song with some enjoyable effort put to it. So next track. Now the second to last track of this album is called Is There Really No Happiness? The answer? There is happiness. Because I gotta say, this is probably one of my top 5 on this album. In my opinion, it's a fantastic song. I really love the whole production as well as the beats of this track. The choppings are so good as well as the background sounds, and I also enjoy the vocals and the lyrics of this track. But let's not forget about the chorus segments. Those parts of this song are really enjoyable and rather have a mix of emotions along with the entire track. I don't really have anything much to say next about this track, but all I can say is that this is my favorite track on this album that isn't a single, and my 4th favorite overall. So yeah, without further ado, let's move on to the final track on this album, which is... Yep, this is the final track on this album called Everything to Me. And if I have to say one word to describe this track, I'll say, wow. This track is so emotional, so heartwarming, and yet it's really beautiful. I know I said that the previous track is my 4th favorite track on this album, but this is very close. Words cannot describe how much emotion is put into this track. Like, I love the guitars, I love the production of it, and the vocals are great. And man, the songwriting here is amazing, and it's probably the best out of the other tracks we cover on this album. Not to mention that this is known to be a message to his fans, saying that they're everything to him, hence the title. But yeah, what a heartwarming ending to this album. I loved it. So yeah, that's gonna be it for my thoughts on each track. But the question still stands. What do I think about this album as a whole? In my opinion, I think it's a really great track. This album to me is described as a fun and creative one, yet with a mix of emotions to it. Again, it's pretty disappointing that this album has a total of 10 tracks in it. It's probably not as good as Nurture and maybe Worlds, but despite that, the production here is fantastic, and I really like the guitar and keyboard instruments throughout it. Not to mention that the songwriting is very well made, especially in Everything to Me. Now don't get me wrong, I would say the structure of this album is kinda odd, with the first half having a very energetic personality, while the other half has a more emotional tone to it. But I think it's rather interesting at the same time in my eyes. And I do say that the lyrics can be too random in some tracks, but overall, I'm gonna give this album a score of 8.5 out of 10. Very energetic, yet pretty emotional at the end. However, this is my opinion about this album, and you can feel free to give your thoughts about it in the comments below. But anyways, that's gonna be it for this music review. Again, hope you guys enjoyed this as I took time to make this. And if you want more music reviews, then make sure to like and subscribe for more content like this. And I'll see you guys next time. Peace out, y'all.